Welcome to Big Blend Radio with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazine.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to Big Blend Radio's Quality of Life show. Today's show features former children's book editor turned author, Jayne Pillemer. She is joining us to talk about her new book. It's very thoughtful, it's touching, it's cute. It's called Still Mine. And what is great about this book is it helps parents and children work through emotions of grief. We all know what it's like to lose somebody. It is not an easy thing, and to really communicate with kids and navigate those, emotional waters can be difficult. And even introducing them to the whole life fact of people move on in life. So definitely a book you want to get as a parent or a teacher, grandparent, friend. Go check it out. It is out on January 18th. And it's through Harper Collins. But of course, you can pre-order it in all those great places. So check it out. And you can also follow Jayne at Jayne Pillemer Books. And that's Jayne for Jayne. And also, I want to give a shout out to the amazing illustrator, Sheryl Murray. So welcome to the show, Jayne. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much. The book is actually already out. It came out January 18, 2022.
That's so right. I was reading this going, did I make a typo? I'm good at those, but there it is.
So it came out at the beginning of the year. It's out. It's available Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all of the independents, wherever you like to shop.
Everybody.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So how has it been, going into the waters of being an author from an editor? Because it's, people just think, oh, we could just write a children's book, but it's actually not that easy, is it?
No, it is not that easy. And really, my years as a children's book editor really were the foundation for my transition to author. I was with Harper Collins for over 5 years as a children's book editor. And when I left, I continued to work for them in a freelance capacity and for a couple other agents and publishers. And really, publishing and editing gave me such an understanding about writing for children at different developmental stages and what's appropriate for a 4 to 8 year old, even versus, a 6 to 9 year old. Mm-hmm. It gave me a lot of practice in sort of putting myself in that readership age and sort of turning my brain on to what does a child respond to? What does a parent respond to? And it really helped me sort of tailor the way that I told my story. It also gave me a big understanding of marketing, of book contracts, sort of all of the behind the scene things. And when I was pitching Still Mine, it really was integral because I was able to sort of say, okay, publishers are really looking for a hook. How can we market this? And I sold it right during the pandemic, during that sort of first initial 14-week lockdown. And I think it was really fortuitous timing in that publishers had their ears perked up about sort of hard topics. And death is something that a lot of people shy away from talking to children in this target 4 to 8 age range about. But children in that age range were exposed to death on a daily basis. They were hearing about it. They were hearing about COVID. They were having family members and friends, members of their community pass away or be hospitalized. They were experiencing death of people who weren't even old. And it was also a time that was made but much more difficult that we weren't able to be together. You weren't able to go to the hospital to visit. You weren't able to say goodbye. You weren't able to have closure. And I think the timing of the manuscript arriving to Harper Collins was really sort of fortuitous, and that they kind of were thinking, okay, we need an answer to what's happening, and how can we explain to children about death? And this really sort of was in the right place at the right time. And being an editor really helped me sort of think about, okay, I'm finishing the manuscript. I really think that this is the right time to pitch it because we have sort of a hook or a reason to publish right now.
Yeah, I agree. It's there's so much loss that has happened, and also for kids going through, all these shootings too, which is,
Yes.
something none of us want to talk about. We don't want it to happen, but it is a very big reality in our world, and that causes a lot of fear and understanding. And it's just, I also think like when children go through, like a family goes through a divorce, the children can internalize that and start blaming themselves. So
Right.
that's why I think what's so great about your book, Still Mine, is like, okay, we can still have these memories, and you do it all the way through to tasting chocolate, hot chocolate as a memory,
Yeah.
that you really, it's such a good title on that. It's giving them ownership over a situation.
Yeah, so what's really interesting is when I was in the early stages of the book, I really struggled with sort of how to get the ball rolling. And I was thinking about the title, With You Always, and it never kind of felt right. And two things that I sort of started to put together through the early drafts were, the question of, okay, if a child loses a sibling, are they an only child or do they still have a sibling?
Right.
And then I also thought about the idea of how my children are really comforted when we focus on what they get to keep versus what's going away.
Mm.
And so I thought about those two musings together, and that really brought about the Still Mine refrain. And once I got that Still Mine refrain down, the rest of the book started to flow in final form. It
Mm.
really started to just click, that childlike mine, 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 and what I can still have.
Mm.
And I think that for children is a really comforting thing, that somebody can go away and that's really sad and that's really hard, but I can still have love and that will never go away.
Yeah, I like that. And I also think what's great about your book, well, it flows really nicely, and that's always a big deal for kids to be able to have that kind of rhyming, kind of, not necessarily 100% rhyming, but that kind of, like a sing song kind of thing. And
Yes, so we
uh,
call it a
fun.
lyrical text because it's
Yeah.
not it's not a perfect rhyme, but it does sort of roll off the tongue in a particular way. And that was actually really important to me when writing, because I wanted it to feel gentle when read aloud. And the lyrical text allowed it to feel really soft and have that flow as you read it aloud, which I think is really sort of comforting to the ear. And I wanted the message to be comforting to the heart and the way that it read to be comforting to the ear. And
Yeah.
sort of that sort of creates this beautiful sort of way that it can be received.
Yeah, it's rhythmical, and that's something what goes with a heartbeat, right? So it's a natural
Right,
thing. And
right.
also, I think it's a really cool tool for parents and loved ones to sit down with kids, because that's something it's like as a parent, and the child could be really young. It's like, oh man, it's like I have to have that talk, do I?
Yes,
And how do you handle grief yourself if you're going through it as a parent and
yes.
then going through it with your child? How do you make that happen,
So I think that, yeah, I think that parents are completely overwhelmed by talking to children about death. And you feel so anxious about introducing the idea to them because you don't want to be the one responsible for bringing out worry or anxiety. Um, but I found that, when my grandmother died and I had a reason to talk to my children about it wasn't made easier because I
Mm.
had the reason. It was actually made harder because I had to cope with my own grief in addition to helping a small child understand this huge concept.
Right.
So I'm really pro reading Still Mine before you have a reason to, per se, and helping children to understand, this stage of life, death is a part of life, and also have them understand the comfort that comes from love that lives
Mm.
on.
Oh.
And I think that it's a much more peaceful conversation and an easier conversation to have before you're in the midst of that really tough grief.
I think it's something that should be done soon. You know what I mean? So that it's not that big shock. I mean, it's
Right.
still a shock when you lose someone, and but it's having that understanding before it happens is really it's a big deal. How has the response been now that it's been out for a year?
We have had such a really warm response to this book. It's been really touching to see sort of all of the Instagram love that has been coming through and the wonderful reviews. Kirkus called it tender and touching.
Yeah.
And that has really, especially as a debut author, that's been really, really wonderful. I've also really loved the responses that I'm getting directly from the kids when I'm in school and library.
Oh, cool.
And that's been really sweet. You know, a lot of the kids, when I say, how does this book make you feel? I've been hearing words like warm, calm, peaceful. This book made
Nice.
me remember a memory. And it's kids, I think, are really responding to it in a positive way. And that was my hope for the book, especially like you mentioned, in this time of turmoil with the pandemic and school shootings, to sort of be able to bring a little bit of peace to this conversation.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And it's, you know, and as an author to be able to write it, and you have to have like that integrity in there, you know, it's you're tackling a difficult topic, and it's yeah, you have to have pure integrity when you do something like this. So it does get that, calm, peaceful, warm feeling for the kids and the parents, because that's something where you never know what's the right thing to say, right?
Right. And, I brought, a lot of my own grief and love to this book, as did Sheryl. Sheryl dedicated it
That's
to her
amazing.
sister who passed away when she was a teenager.
Oh.
And Sheryl lost her parents, her father, especially during her time illustrating Still Mine.
Oh,
so
my.
she brought a lot of fresh grief and fresh love to it. And this book was, inspired by my grandmother. So it really came from all sorts of amazing love that has impacted both Sheryl and I, and our children.
So are you going to do more? I have to ask.
Yes, I am slowly working. I have 3 children. So I don't get as much time to write as I would like. But I am slowly working on a few things and tinkering with a couple ideas. I mentioned Still Mine had a couple of early versions that weren't quite right, but I love the idea. And sort of the more I tinkered with a couple things, the more I started, getting my flow with this one. And I was like, okay, now I'm ready to focus my full attention. And once it starts coming, it really starts forming. So I'm definitely tinkering with a few ideas, and it's such a fun, exciting time to kind of see what's going to start rolling.
Oh, I think this is great. And I think, I don't know what it is about the holiday season, but we lose a lot of people. I mean, we just lost 4 people in a row, like in a row within a month, which is not, even when I knew you were coming on, I'm like, oh, but it did, reading your book made me feel, just feel good. And I'm an adult,
Right.
Well, I feel like I'm a kid sometimes too, but
well, I've heard a lot of people say that they are giving this as a gift to adults, because sometimes you don't know what to say, or you feel like, okay, they've gotten, 100 bouquets. I want to do something different or more personal. And the message is resonating with adults as well. And it is, comforting for, I think, readers of any age who have been through loss. And the holidays are such a hard time. They're the happiest, holliest, jolliest time of the year. And yet they're also the most difficult time if you're grieving.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's definitely, everybody's, a little separated, and the new year comes and it's like, okay, I'm just going to keep moving on, but you have to deal with it. You can't just, not look at it and not feel it. It is there. So that's the other part I think that's so great about it, having a book like this, is it's not just, you can't just swallow grief.
Right. No, you have to live it. And it takes, a long time to live.
And it reminds us to also live, and to take care of those loved ones that are close to us, and not take it for granted. It's like one of those things you wish, oh, I should never have canceled that meeting, or you know what I mean? So it's another good thing about, you don't have to wait for someone to grasp these concepts,
Right.
And lastly, I do want to say what's really cool about your way of writing, the lyrical side, as you're saying.
Yeah.
It's really incredible how the art goes with the words in a do you know what I mean? There's like a circular flow that goes with it.
I'm so happy that you noticed that, because one of the things that I love most about Sheryl's artwork is she has this ability to achieve fluidity in her background.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of Still Mine is that love is all around. It's swirling in the stars, it's blowing in the breeze around us. And I kind of wondered, like, how is an illustrator going to be able to actually capture that sort of intangible feeling? And Sheryl was able to do that with all of the movement that she creates in her backgrounds.
That's awesome.
And it really made me feel like, yes, love is this invisible force, but it is this indestructible, feelable force, and it's floating all around. And she really, really was able to bring that to life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, congratulations on your first book being out there. We're waiting for more. You better come back.
Thank you so much.
I'm
I'm working on it. I would love to be back. Thank you so much for having me. This has been such a wonderful chat.
Awesome. Everyone, it's Jayne Pillemer Books on Instagram. And you can also keep up with Sheryl. It's SherylMurray.com, and that's SHERYL. And she's also on Facebook, Sheryl Murray Illustrator. And of course, as we were saying, the book is out now, so you can go get it now through Harper Collins. Again, it is called Still Mine. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Lisa.